I'd like to say good afternoon to everyone and thank you for attending our first Representation Matters, exploring careers for our young Black and African American males who are underrepresented. We're really excited about this program that we have been able to put together for you this afternoon. We have truly been very fortunate to have the volunteers of various types of careers across the state of North Carolina join us on this platform and provide information about their journey, perhaps some pitfalls and some things that they found to be very successful, to give you some ideas about how to go about your journey in various types of careers. And many of them wear many hats, as we found out during our planning meetings. I am Soretta Broadway with the College Foundation of North Carolina. I am one of our 9 regional representatives that cover the state of North Carolina, providing information about the various types of resources that we have available with CFNC. College Foundation of North Carolina, we like to consider it being a one-stop shop, free resource center, providing information on career planning, academic planning, college preparation, scholarships, saving for college, you name it. Anything dealing with planning, applying, paying, and saving for college, we try to make sure that it is on our website. We're made up of the 6 organizations that you see here on the wheel, the 16 UNC campuses, the 36 independent colleges and universities, the 58 community colleges, North Carolina State Education Assistance Authority, and the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, not to mention College Foundation Incorporated, as I said before. The 6 of us decided to come under one umbrella so that we could provide you with all of the relevant information regarding those topics that I just mentioned. So make sure after today that you do visit our website. We encourage you to create a CFNC username and password so you can have total access to the information that is on our website, which is geared towards students kindergarten all the way through adulthood. Those who are continuing their education perhaps as adults, starting their education out as adults, or what have you. We feel as though there's something for everyone on our website. I don't want to delay the hour because we have a power-packed panel for you this afternoon. Someone to talk about logistics and music production, also poetry study, what have you. We have a great lineup. We have educators here with us today, and we're really excited about the information that they're going to be sharing with you. Veterinarian medicine with a concentration on poetry, shall I say. You probably say, well, what is that? You sit back, you relax, and just hear what Dr. Brandon has to tell you this afternoon. But I'm now going to turn this hot mic over to my colleague, none other than Miss Brittany Privet.
Thank you so much, Ms. Broadway. I really appreciate that wonderful and spirited introduction. Again, my name is Brittany Privet, and I am one of the 9 regional reps for the College Foundation of North Carolina. I am working and living out of the Wilmington area. So we have a representative in every area code of the state to help you plan, apply, pay, and save for college. And like Soretta said, we have a fantastic group of people to talk to you today about how to prepare for maybe a career that you may have never thought about before, or a career that you may be one of the few who looks like you entering this career field, and how that looks, how to prepare, and ways to make sure that you're on track. So I'm going to have our lovely panel introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about what they do, and then we are going to open it up for questions. I'll ask the panel a couple of questions, but if anyone in the attendees want to ask any questions, I'll be more than happy to relay that to our panel. We're going to start with a dynamic Sean Slaughter. We'll have him introduce himself, and I will call out the rest of our panel afterwards.
What's up, everybody? A little under the weather, fighting something, but it's good to be here with you guys. My name is Sean Slaughter. Currently, I'm a real estate agent. I'm a realtor, but today I'm going to be talking about music production. I was in the music industry for about 15 years. Recorded 7 albums. One of the albums top 50 on the iTunes chart. I also was a recording studio owner. So I owned a recording studio for 20 plus years. with an audio engineering degree. And just have all aspects of music production, music recording, all of that type stuff that, everybody want to blow up and be the next Lil Wayne or next Lil Baby. Just make it more current. But yeah, it's good to be here, and I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Slaughter. We appreciate you sharing today, especially being under the weather. Thank you for showing up and showing out today.
Good afternoon. I'm Brandon Armwood. I am from Fayetteville, North Carolina. Keith Armwood is my uncle. And I am a poultry veterinarian for Pilgrims. We are the largest broiler chicken producing company in the world, second to Tyson in the United States. I oversee the health and welfare of poultry in North Carolina, South Carolina, West Virginia, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. I'm currently in Minnesota right now in a hotel room, but I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Brandon. I appreciate it. Next, we have William Privet.
Hey, how's everyone doing today? My name is William Privet. I'm a studies teacher. I'm doing 7th grade this year. It's my 5th year in education. I work in Johnson County schools. I've worked in Wake County schools. I actually just got a job offer in Durham County schools for next school year. But yeah, I also am in the North Carolina National Guard as well. 12 years of service in that. So yeah, I'm excited about today. Can't wait to talk to y'all.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. So that rounds out our wonderful panel. Are we missing anybody, Soretta? Everybody else is on the call, right? We're good to go on introductions? Fantastic, fantastic. So we're going to start. I want to ask the panel, and I will ask you all in order as we introduced ourselves, but as we progress through this, if you have an answer to a question that you really want to share, we don't have to go in order for every question. I just want to kind of give you all the platform to talk a little bit about your expertise and what your passions are and all of that fun stuff. So to start us off when it comes to the conversation, I would like to ask each panelist, what led you to your current career and what would you say motivates you to stay in the field? We'll go ahead and start with Mr. Slaughter on that one.
So I think what led me to, when I was doing music, I grew up in a musical family. My entire family did music. And I think I was maybe 15 years old when I think I made my first beat and wrote my first rap. And of course I probably thought like anybody else, I'm gonna blow up and blah, 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 and all this type of stuff. But I really enjoyed music. I enjoyed self-expression. I enjoyed being creative. It was just something that was in me. Didn't know that it would actually be a career. And so once I actually got into it, I kind of started realizing that making the music was actually the easy part. It was really the first step, because it was the music business. And the business part actually is what attracted me as well. And so Donald Passett's All About the Music Business, which is a book, music business Bible. I read that and began just learning more about it. I went to school. I'm from New York originally. I'm actually in Virginia, in Hampton Roads, Virginia, but I'm from New York. And I went to school for audio engineering and just continually fell in love with not just creating music lyrically, but the process of making music, the engineering part, recording and mixing and mastering and all that type of stuff. And so I think that's what really drew me into making music, creating music, and continually, being around music. And even though I'm not in music per se these days, my daughters have taken on the mantle and they're creating music and all that type of stuff. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here. And thank you for talking a little bit about how making music is part of it. But like you said, it's a whole business. So there's other facets to the music industry and so many things that you can do. I just put the Amazon link to that book in the chat, and I'll be happy to kind of put those resources in the chat as we go. Mr. Armwood, what about you? You're on mute.
Yes, I started off, I was an education major. You know, my goal, I looked up to my teachers, and once I graduated college, I was blessed with a basketball scholarship to a HBCU, to Texas Southern University. And once I got there, and after I graduated, I taught and coached basketball for 5 years, and then I took on a part-time job with the juvenile system. And people just saw something in me, and I kept moving up in that field. They kept pouring into me, and before I knew it, I was an administrator, and then I got blessed with the superintendent job. You know, I always tell young people, always just try to prepare yourself, because you never know when the opportunity comes. You know, a lot of times you may get the opportunity, you're not prepared, or a lifetime we will prepare but never get the opportunity. But when both of them meet, it's very sweet. So I was blessed that I was prepared when my opportunity came, became the superintendent. Now here I am, not minimizing any majors, but I was a PE major, and here I am as a superintendent of the juvenile centers, and in the sixth largest state in the country, in Dallas. And here I am with people with doctrines under my leadership. So it was just a blessing that I was able to do that, you know. And after that, my wife and I did that for 27 and a half years. My wife and I started a non-emergency transportation company, and we did that for like a month. And then my wife saw a commercial, and this is just nothing but grace. She saw a commercial where Jeff Bezos was giving, Amazon was giving opportunities to small business owners. And we applied for it. And Mr. Slider says he's from New York. I'm country's corn. I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina. And now I'm living in New York with a partnership with Amazon. But just taking advantage of opportunities that were ahead of me. So I'm just blessed to be a part of that.
That's fantastic, especially knowing that none of the fields that you have gone into have been related to each other, but they've kind of been serendipitous in the fact that you've just you've walked into the opportunities that have been open for you, and which sounds fantastic. And I can't wait to learn a little bit more about that. Thank you for sharing, Mr. Armwood. Dr. Armwood, what led you into poultry veterinary sciences? Tell us a little more about that.
Well, growing up, my father, Keith Armwood's brother, really got me into horses. We used to ride past a horse stable near Rayford, North Carolina, on the way to his work. And one day we just stopped in there just to talk to the owner about horses, about maybe me riding, taking lessons. And I started taking lessons, and then I started showing competitively quarter horses. And then that would turn from a hobby to more of a little business where we would buy horses cheap and sell them. And so showing horses, I was able to run into a lot of equine veterinarians. And then that's when I was like, that's where I got the idea of becoming a veterinarian. It wasn't later on until I went to North Carolina A&T, Aggie Pride, another HBCU. And I knew I wanted to go to vet school, and I knew I needed some veterinary hours. So the only job they had left was at the poultry unit, picking up chickens, helping with research, anything I could do. And I needed the money, so I had no farming background, knew nothing about chickens, and come to find out I was actually scared of chickens the first day I walked into the poultry house. But I grew to love population medicine, how to prevent diseases from moving through a population. So I going into vet school, I knew I wanted to do poultry medicine. And so all through vet school, I tried to set myself up so when that opportunity came, that I was ready. So now I'm working for the largest poultry company in the world, and I'm blessed as well. So that's how I kind of stepped into poultry. It was out of nowhere. I kind of by luck, I would say, but I have loved every minute of it. What keeps me in it is just seeing how many, I want to say starving or people just under the poverty line. And then Pilgrims does a lot. We do a lot of outreach and just being able to feed Americans, people across the world with healthy chickens. And then again, on the animal welfare side, I'm making sure these chickens are taken care of properly, knowing that they will come and feed somebody's family.
Thank you for that. And I heard a little birdie told me that you rode horses at A&T. So were you on the equestrian team at A&T?
I did. So just so happened the equestrian coach was at one of the my horse competitions, and he gave a card to my dad, and my dad kept that card for at least 2 years. And I say everything happens for a reason, because I just knew that I was going to NC State for undergrad. Of course, I long story short, I did not get into NC State. So we used that card, and they took me. I was on the equestrian team in about 2 to 3 days.
Awesome. Was there a scholarship involved with that?
Yes. It wasn't full ride, but it definitely helped.
So who knew you could go to college and ride a horse and get a scholarship for riding horses at a HBCU? There are opportunities out there for everyone. So please make sure that you're keeping your eyes and your ears open for these opportunities, keeping cards, making sure that you're making these connections, because stuff like that can lead you into your dream job. So thank you so much, Dr. Arnwood, for sharing. Mr. Privet, do you want to talk a little bit about your journey into education?
Yeah, of course. So I kind of went kicking and screaming a little bit into education. So just a little background, like obviously my sister's in education, my mom as well. So like all through undergrad, I was like, I'm not going to graduate and teach. And so like I majored in history. So like what was my career path? I'm going to write be a historian, all that. And, while in school, I was like, I went to University of Maryland, and cost of living up there is expensive. So I joined the National Guard to help pay for school and give me some extra cash as well. So, upon graduation, I was like, I'm not going to teach. But even while in school, like it was just calling, because while in school, I tutored at a local high school to volunteer. Like my mom actually was a principal up there. So I'd like go to her elementary school and read. But at the back of my mind, I was like, I was loving it. But, in front of me, I was like, no, I'm not. I refuse to teach. I refuse to. And then when I graduated, I actually worked at Social Security Disability, and I was absolutely miserable there because I wasn't doing what I should have been doing. And in the meantime, my mom was like, why don't you can quit, but then like you could sub in the meantime till you find something more long term. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll do that. Like that's not permanent. I'm fine with it. And so I started subbing, and I loved it. And I was like, I'm gonna teach. Funny enough. So like I really, because in the back of my mind, I was like, if I enjoy being a substitute teacher, and that's having my own classroom became a goal of mine. And so like I went back to school to get my graduate certificate so I could get licensed to teach. All the while, like I was still in the National Guard too, so I was still that helped pay for my graduate school some too. So yeah, and then lo and behold, I'm a teacher now after fighting it for so long.
And I could not be more proud. Right now, less than 2% of teachers are African-American males, which is a big deal because a huge majority of our students, I wouldn't say a majority, but a huge chunk of our students right now are African-American males. And our minority populations in public schools are growing exponentially to the point where the majority of our public school students right now in the United States are African-American, Hispanic, or non-white students all around. So having that representation is extremely important. Mr. Privet, do you do anything outside of the classroom? Do you have any clubs that you organize? Do you coach or anything like that?
Yeah, I coach. I'm head football and head track coach at my school, which is, it's always like middle school, like is all about building relationships. And that's like one of the best ways to do it is by coaching. You have a completely different interaction with them. I love it. We just won conference for track, so I'm so proud of that. So I do coach as well.
And I'm pulling this out of you, Mr. Privet. Didn't you start the drama club at your school as well?
I did. I stay active in it. Yeah, I'm busy. I do it all. So yeah, like while in college, I did a lot of acting stuff and was like president of Shakespeare Club. So it's like, you get these tools as you go along and you don't realize what you're going to use them for. And then lo and behold, being in education has allowed me to use those tools I've gained along the way. So.
And the main reason I ask that is because it seems like all of the men that are on our panel today have very different interests, very different journeys, and none of them seem to be the stereotypical what you think of a Black male. So I think it's really fantastic that you are all coming from different places. We are not a monolithic people, and we all have so many different opportunities ahead of us, but sometimes getting that networking piece, making those connections can really lead us into a field that we may have resisted or may have not even thought of like poultry veterinarian. So thank y'all for sharing a little bit about your stories and what you do and what led you into those fields. Does anybody want to talk about the salary range for your field? Do you feel like there's opportunities for growth when it comes to making a living? Are you able to support a family on your salary? And when it comes to that, sometimes we all know as adults that your salary can mean one thing, but job satisfaction goes hand in hand at that. You can make all the money in the world, but if you're miserable at your job, it's just not worth it. So I think a two-part of that would be, what is the salary range of your field? And do you feel like your job satisfaction allows you to enjoy what you do fully? Mr. Slaughter, do you want to start us off on that?
Sure. So as far as I guess who I was when it came to being a recording artist, of course I wasn't like a enormous recording artist. I wasn't J. Cole or something like that. But for about 15 years, I traveled, did about 80 to 100 concerts a year. I was able to travel to almost every state, Philippines, Africa 2 or 3 times, Europe, Ireland, almost all the islands. So job satisfaction, that was dope. All right. Like traveling was dope. Being able to I remember going to the Philippines and going to the mall. I had a couple dudes with me, and I'm 6'4", and like we walked in the mall, and they probably thought like I was LeBron James. Like the mall just shut down. Like they never saw Black people in the Philippines, like up close. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of crazy. But I would say what I made per year was probably between $80,000 and $100,000. I was doing music at the time when you sold CDs. And so I would, my hotel and my travel would be paid for. I would get an honorarium, maybe like $2,000 a concert, and then I would sell CDs for like $10. And I can make anywhere from 500 to 750 per show on top of the honorarium. And so, yeah, it was cool. I mean, it allowed my wife to go to school. Currently, she's a therapist, but during that time, we had 2 little kids. It allowed her to go to school and not have to work. And we weren't rich. We had a decent house, but I was able to do music and take care of my family. Now, the music business is also cyclical, so most of your concerts start ramping up in April, and then they start ramping down in like October, because that's when you have festivals and tours and all that type of stuff in the spring, and then they start ramping down, and then you might do something around Thanksgiving or Christmas concert or something like that. And so because I had a recording studio here in Virginia, I recorded a lot of different artists. So I used that skill to supplement income. I also had a CD DVD duplication company. And so I had bought, man, this sounds old. So I had bought this CD DVD duplicator. It was like a 10 thing duplicator that would print and burn your CD and DVD. So I would, like make the dupes for like churches or artists would come in and record, and I would, hey, I can make some CDs for you, put them in some jewel cases. And so yeah, I was able to supplement my income as an artist, which most artists, if you're not the Jay-Z's or the Lil Babies, you're not making millions and millions of dollars, um, you're going to have to find some way to supplement your income, because the reality is that in today's music industry, the majority of the money that you're going to make is um, doing shows. Creating music these days, and even a little bit then, but these days, creating music is basically like handing out a business card. Now, if you're Drake and or you're The Weeknd and you have like the most spins on Spotify, billions of spins, then you'll be all right. But back in those days, it would cost me $2 or $3 to make a CD. I would sell the CD for $10. I'll make $7 profit. Today, one stream, every time you play a song on Spotify, last time I checked, you get paid 1/3 of a cent. So my last two albums I released on music streaming platforms. I had a song that was streamed over, I don't know, 600,000 times. I think the check that I got cut was for like $800. Now, if I had that same song sold as a single for $1, that'd have been $500,000. And so artists these days have to realize you're streaming, even putting stuff on YouTube, you're getting a third, not 1 cent, you're getting 1/3 of a cent. You're getting half a cent. In order to even make money on YouTube, you have to have 1 million or 1 billion views. You have to have like 1 million views to make $100,000, right? And so you have to tour. And that's where your money's going to come in. It's touring. I actually created t-shirts. So I was selling products, just realizing that I have to become more than an artist. I have to almost become a retail store as well. But yeah, I made between $80,000 and $100,000 just kind of as a small time artist.
Thank you so much for laying that out for us. I just learned so much from just that explanation, because I think, as from what I'm gathering you say, is that you have to know a lot about the business itself outside of just being an artist to make money in the music business. You have to be creative, but you have to have that business and hustle mindset as well to understand how you can maximize your craft, because you're not going to make as much money off of people just listening to your music. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, so my daughter, like I said, I passed it down to her. She has a record deal, and she has a record deal, and she has a deal with Instagram Reels, and she has 200,000 followers on TikTok or something like that. But what I tell them is that the music that you create, I put it like this: Kanye West makes music to sell sneakers.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Ooh, that's awesome. Yeah.
He makes music to sell sneakers, and he's always putting out different albums, not because he necessarily needs to, but he makes more money selling clothing and licensing and branding than he does with music. The music just keeps him relevant. And so, yes, as an artist, if you're saying to yourself, man, I'm gonna make this music and I'm gonna, blow up and be big, well, that percentage is very, very small. Although you can still have a career. You don't have to be big and blow up and have your face all over TV. You can still have a career, but you're going to have to look at that career more as an entrepreneur, and less as, I want to be, like the next Drake, because very few of us can be the next Drake or the next LeBron James or so.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Very insightful and very good to know. If I were a high school student, I would definitely be taking notes right now, because I just learned so much from that. Speaking of entrepreneurship and kind of partnerships and stuff like that, Mr. Armwood, do you want to talk a little bit about the role that you play and kind of the salary potential in logistics and working with a company like Amazon, and maybe the liability that's involved in that as well?
Yes. Am I off? Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me. Okay. Yeah. First of all, it has really been a blessing. Not necessarily about the salary that I make, but my wife and I partnership together. We started off with 5 trucks. Once we got the partnership, we started with 5 trucks and 9 employees. As of today, we went out with 55 trucks and 108 employees, and 104 of them are full-time. And all of them make $18.50 an hour. So our blessing is that we can pour into young folk, give them the opportunity of leadership. We were able to, I have a nephew who's in college at UNCG, and he has a skill set that is amazing, and he does my payroll. So, you know, on my end, it's more about giving back, because I am retired from the juvenile piece and I was blessed with the Amazon partnership. But the potential earnings are, it has been a blessing to us, but just a blessing to be able to help other people out. Mr. Sean's from New York, and he knows in New York, it's public transportation. I have staff that their families have never owned cars. And now they have consistent checks. And here they are, they came and they were catching public transportation. And now it allows them to get transportation for them and their families. So we're just blessed to be able to give back and just to be in the position that we don't take it for granted.
Awesome. And as an entrepreneur, when it comes to salary potential, would you say, from what I understand, because I work for a nonprofit and I love the work I do, but we are on a salary basis. So what I make is what I make, and that's kind of up to my company. But my understanding as an entrepreneur, and Mr. Slaughter could probably speak to this as well, what you put into it, you get out of it. So if you want to make money, you have to definitely put the work in. And Mr. Slaughter talked about thinking about the big picture and selling t-shirts and selling CDs and stuff like that to really kind of supplement his income. As an entrepreneur, what do you have to think about when it comes to actually making money in your own business?
Being hands-on and making sure that your staff understands what you stand for. Make sure people don't leave, they leave companies because they're not treated right. So if you're hands-on and you treat people right, they will stick in there with you, and then you get blessed more. We're blessing people. I have people now, and what I've learned in my, as I've grown, I get people that I surround myself with people in leadership, because mid-management makes or breaks you, and what I've learned is that long as you take care of them and you treat them with respect, then it's out the roof. I mean, we have really been blessed, because I truly believe because we treat people right. So the earnings have been amazing, because we pour back into the community, we pour back into the staff, we pour back into their families. But it depends on, you're exactly right. It depends on how much you give and how much hands-on you are. My thing with leadership, if you're leading and nobody's following, you're just taking a long walk. So you got to make sure that you're leading the right way.
Fantastic. And we've got a quote to write down there. That was a really good one. Thank you, Mr. Armwood. Dr. Armwood, I know working for the College Foundation, how much it takes to become a veterinarian and how much schooling you have to go through. Do you feel like the earning potential in your field really matches the amount of work that you put in to get there? And what is the earning potential of being a veterinarian? You don't have to tell us how much you make, but kind of what that range looks like.
No, great question. So even being in vet med, there are so many different avenues you could take. Like I said, I started off wanting to be an equine vet. My sister is currently a small animal veterinarian. My wife does pathology, but she's a veterinarian. So there's each one of those have different earning potentials. And so just sticking with mine and being in poultry medicine, you can even break it down even to more. So there's turkey veterinarians. There's the egg laying. So if you think about the eggs we eat, those birds, veterinarian oversees those birds. And then the chicken that we eat, that's where I'm at, the sector, what we call broiler medicine. And then so sticking with broiler medicine, I would say the salary range is probably from 130 to 300. And it just depending on company you work for, smaller companies going to be on maybe on that lower end. Larger companies obviously going to be on that higher end. And then we get a bonuses each year, and those can be roughly $30,000 to $40,000 bonuses on top of our base salary. So I would say personally, the schooling that I had to do, which would, again, 4 years at A&T, and then I went to 4 years at NC State, and then I did a year and a half at the University of Georgia to get my master's and to specialize in poultry medicine. And many going to say, "Whoa, that's a long." I mean, that's 9 years post high school, but it did allow me to grow up slow. And I would say the earnings definitely allow me to pay my bills, pay off the loans, and live a pretty good lifestyle. My work-life balance is amazing. I do travel a lot, but I can be home when I want to be home. I have a 11-month-old son. So my wife is trying to raise him. So I've gotten to be home more this past year than in previous years, and so the work-life balance piece is just as big to me as the earning potential.
Fantastic. And work-life balance is a huge, huge part of just choosing a career and figuring out what you want to do. Because like I said before, you can make all the money in the world, but if you don't like getting up and going to work every day, or if you are really leaning on the life part of things because you don't like the work part of things, it doesn't make it worth it. And from what I know about you, Mr. Armwood, or Dr. Armwood, excuse me, you are you definitely love your job. And not only do you love your career, but you were so eager to talk to students today about what you do. So I appreciate you sharing that, because work-life balance is a huge part of it. Mr. Privet, we all hear that teachers are not rolling in the dough. Do you want to talk a little bit about the salary range and kind of how you supplement your income and that kind of the enjoyment that you get out of teaching?
Yeah, so obviously everyone knows what teachers make. No, so like what I always tell people, like, one, we work 10 months out of the year. That's something to take into account. But usually, I mean, it's 40, and if you've been teaching you can make up to 60 depending on education and everything like that. So it's also, so like for teachers, yes, that's about like the max you're going to make in North Carolina, right? Depending on your state. But in North Carolina, 45, I think is the average, 50, somewhere around there. Ways that I supplement. So I'm in the National Guard. So I've been in 12 years now. I'm a staff sergeant, so like I make about 10,000 extra a year doing that. I also coach 2 sports. It was 3 last year because we didn't have a girls track coach. So that's another. Each sport is around $2,000 more for coaching. But it's the lifestyle you want, right? I'm on spring break now. It's wonderful. I was able to buy my second house. I go on vacation every summer to wherever I want. Obviously not the past 2 years. And then it's nice too, like, because the National Guard, they like usually are like training is in the summer. So then I working most of the summer anyway. Also like deployed in the, 2 years ago. So like that's also where some more supplement comes from. But I will say, though, there is some misconceptions about there's no money in education. Teachers, there's not a ton, but as far as like education as a whole, like if you get into administration, if you're a principal, you're making 80 to 100. My mom now is, she was a principal for years. She's consulting, making more than she was. I don't even know how much she's making, honestly. It's upwards, it's over 100. So like they're, all the federal money that came in from COVID, all the federal money they're funding, we got to fix the schools. That money is going to someone, right? Like in Johnston County, we just implemented a new reading program, like online reading program. And so they hired somebody just to implement this online reading program, right? And they're definitely making more than I am. So like the money, if you want to stay in education, like long term, if you want more, like if you want to stay in education, that is like, there is some out there. Like teaching, not as, I guess, pretty capped right now, but there's ways to kind of supplement. You got time to, especially summer and different breaks as well. But yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for breaking down those rumors a little bit, because it always bothers me when people say there isn't money in education. I live a great lifestyle. I love my job, and I've worked in higher ed since I graduated college 10 years ago. And as you can see, my brother really enjoys his job. Our mom was in education for a very long time and is a consultant now. So there's lots and lots out there. I love how Mr. Slaughter talked about the music industry, but I think every industry has those tertiary roles that are going to support the lifestyle that you want to live. We think of veterinarians, and we think of those small animal veterinarians that you go to when your dog is sick, or to get some shots for your dog, but you don't think of who manages chickens when you eat your dinner every night, how many people were involved in getting that meal to your plate. So there's tons and tons of jobs out there for you. And thinking of logistics with Amazon and having those delivery drivers bring different groceries and things to your home now, it all kind of works together, and there's so many jobs out there. When we're thinking about careers and we're thinking about what we want to do when we grow up, if we're a student or changing career, if we're an adult, I want to ask each of you, what mindset do you think that you need to have to be in your field and be successful in your field? And I'll open this up to anybody who wants to answer. So I'm looking at the screen right now. If you have, Mr. Slaughter just unmuted himself, so we'll start with you.
So as far as the music industry, you know, what I find what's interesting is that many of the artists, particularly the rappers that we see, let's take somebody like a Rick Ross, or let's take somebody like Baby from Cash Money, and we look at these dudes, and we see the tats, and we see like all the different things that they do. You know, Rick Ross just, you know, sometimes can seem very ignorant. A lot of these dudes are playing a role. These guys are brilliant. Was it Rick Ross owns, I don't even know how many wing stops. He owns 20, 30, 40 different wing stops. Baby from Cash Money, you know, Baby had Cash Money, which had Lil Wayne and the Cash Money Millionaires. And then Lil Wayne started Young Money, and Young Money was the first one to sign Drake, Nicki Minaj, Tiger. So they were all under. So Baby is really smart when it comes to getting artists, signing contracts, so on and so forth. When you look at them from the outset, it could look ignorant. It could look like they have no skills. The reason people even want to be rappers is because they feel like you don't have to go to school to be a rapper, or you don't have to have any skills to be a rapper. And what they unfortunately will realize is that these guys are brilliant businessmen, hustlers, grinders, self-determined, self-motivated. You know, I talk to students sometimes, and and you know, and I'm sure William, you can agree with this. You know, I used to teach as well, and students getting up for a Zoom class, and they don't come to class, right? Because it's like at 8:30 in the morning class, right? 9 o'clock class. You hit the student, yo, where were you at? I couldn't get up. I'm tired. I can't wake up. And then I would ask that student, so what do you want to be? I want to be a rapper. And I'm saying to myself, like, do you understand the type of mindset, the self-determination that you need in order to be successful in this game? Because, you know, in order to become a vet, there's a path. All right. You go to school, you know, hopefully you have an organization that, you know, like Pilgrim that hired, there's a path. There's no path in music. You know, there's no degree that you can get to be Drake. There's no, some people are awesome and never make it, and some people suck and and they do make it. You know what I'm saying? There is no path. But the one thing that they all have in common, particularly the ones that make it or at least have a career, is that they have this self-determined, they have this grind in them where it doesn't take somebody to come and wake them up. It doesn't take somebody to come and push them. They are self-motivated. They're looking for self-motivated. They're surrounding themselves, whether it's with podcasts or YouTube videos or books that they're reading. They're developing personally because they understand that the thing that they're trying to do is very, very difficult. Last thing, I remember this kid I was talking to, two kids. There's one kid, called him Milk, and he was a basketball player. And this kid walked around with a basketball every day, all day. Like, woke up in the morning with a basketball. And he was young, playing with grown men, and he was just incredible. Went to college, played on the team, never went to the league, but he played in Europe. Knew another kid that was like, man, I want to be a ball player. And kid was getting kicked out of school, getting suspended, not on the team. It's like 15 years old. I'm like, bro, you want to be a ball player? You think that you're just going to turn the switch on one day? You need to be more like this kid, Milk, where every single day you're getting up, you should be living, breathing, and eating basketball, watching stats, listening to games, or what your life needs to be basketball. And so that's the one thing that I would say concerning mindset is that you really have to be all in golf, not in just the music thing, but in the business aspect. And because if not, you're going to hit hard times. You're going to get rejected. People are going to say your music stinks. You're going to mess up as a show. And if you don't have that self-determination, if you don't have that grind to make you get up and go another day, you'll give up at the slightest hint of a something bad happening or hitting a valley in your career. So I think self-determination, I think, would be one of the main things.
That I couldn't have said it better myself, especially for those careers and those fields that you don't have a set path. Like you said, there are some fields out there that if you do 1, 2, and 3, you're going to get to 4 and you're going to be fine. But there are some that you really do have to be self-motivated. You have to get up every day and make sure that you're setting long-term and short-term goals for yourself. And I think those were fantastic examples. So thank you so much for saying that. And just to follow up on that, do you feel like you still use those same that same mindset for working in real estate?
1,000%. 1,000. It's funny because when I became a realtor, so we've always been entrepreneurs in our family, and I own some investment property, and so I wanted to become a real estate agent just to really get more investment property. And so once I graduated, really, I was like, man, I love this. I was always in the business. And so as a realtor, it's the same exact thing. It's like, I set my schedule, but I can get up and I can get up at 11 o'clock and turn on Netflix if I wanted to. Guess what? Ain't gonna make no money. And so I always tell people about the difference between being a W-2 and an entrepreneur, right? Being an employee and an entrepreneur. And not that one is greater than the other, but just understanding the mindset. As an employee, you're working for a business that has already created the systems for you, right? And so when you walk into that business, you have to be in at a certain time, or if you want to take time off, you have to, so on and so forth. Your schedule, when you're off, you're on. Those systems are already created, right? And your employer manages the systems that are created. As an entrepreneur, you're the employer and the employee, right? You're the one that creates the systems, and then you have to follow those systems, right? And so if you tell yourself that you're going to get up at 6 o'clock every single morning, and like I have it right here, every day I commit to, I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to do income producing tasks. I'm going to follow up and find inventory. I'm going to meet with clients, take tours. I'm going to do daily reflection. I have these things sitting in front of me all the time. I have my vision board right here. Every single day I do this. And I follow the system and the schedule that I've set up for myself. And yeah, you're going to have that grind and that will to say, I'm going to set this system up. I'm going to figure out the best system to set up. And then I'm going to have to follow that system because there's nobody watching over you. You know, there's nobody looking over you. There's nobody's going to pull you in and write you up. It's going to be all on you.
Thank you for that. And thank you for giving us a little insight as to how you do that. So that's fantastic. I'm taking notes over here to like writing down what I need to do each day, making sure that I have a vision board and looking forward. Having those short and long-term goals are super important. I know we're running low on time, and I know Mr. Armwood is in Minnesota right now, or Dr. Armwood is in Minnesota right now working. So I want to give him the opportunity, just in case he has to hop off a little early, to talk a little bit more. One, I want to see if you have anything to follow up on what Mr. Slaughter said, based on being in a role that has a path. What kind of mindset do you have to stay motivated to do 9 years of school after graduation? And then I have one question for everyone that I want Mr. Armwood to answer before he hops off. So let's talk a little bit more about the mindset you have to keep that education going, and then we'll close with another question.
No, I would piggyback off of everything he said. Even with my career as a path, setting goals, short-term and long-term goals, and writing them down it's been huge for me. And then figuring out how making a plan of how I'm going to get to those goals. So I would say definitely determination, goal-oriented, and big thing is to find a mentor. A lot of people, you're not going to be able to do it by yourself. And a lot of people that, look like us will gravitate and try to find a mentor that looks like us. And sometimes that's the way you can go. And you see somebody. My biggest thing is go to a mentor who's done something, who knows what they're talking about. That might not even be somebody that looks like you. For me, there wasn't a lot of poultry veterinarians that looked like me. So my mentor was Caucasian, and they, a lot of the Caucasian people are our allies. Use them. Oftentimes, if you are looking for help, and you reach out, some may say no, but you might meet that person who will present opportunities that you've never even thought that you would have. So I would say, again, determination, self-driven, and then another big thing is just finding somebody who's maybe been there, done that, to help you along the way. That was one thing my dad taught me, is when showing horses, we didn't know what we were doing starting off, but he's very good at looking, seeing who's winning, imitating, getting close to them, and they're showing us the way to win. I use that every day in my life. Just finding that person they're already where I want to be. And I think that is huge. And again, they might not look like us. And that shouldn't matter. Just make sure you find a good mentor.
Fantastic advice. I'm going to ask the rest of the panel this question, but I want you to start, if you don't mind, Dr. Armwood. And after Dr. Armwood answers, I want to open the floor for any of our audience members to ask any questions before we close out. But Dr. Armwood, if you could go back and give your 17-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
The biggest thing is, I think it would have to be learning more about finances, money. I say that because you growing up, you think your parents know everything, and we often take all financial stuff from our parents. If I could go back, I would read more books on finances, learn more about business, just so you can use your money to make money. I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen just in my life where I am now, which I'm in that trying to do now is learn about money and finances. And And then one other thing is just don't be afraid to be the only one.
Mm.
I'm almost did not go into poultry medicine because I did not see anyone that looked like me. But I'm glad that, you know, I talked to my father and I always go back to showing horses. And I oftentimes was the only one. And he reminded me that. And so I really believe being the only one has helped me more than it has hurt me.
Mm.
It does not, and I always like to give this piece of advice, even if it's not it does not pay to be on time. It does not pay to be present, and asking good questions. You be on time and be present. You will stand out, and opportunities will open. Thank you.
Fantastic. Yes, for sure. And I'm so glad you said that, because that's the importance of this panel today is making sure that students aren't scared to be the only one. And Kamala Harris, our vice president, said, you know, it's okay to be the first, but just make sure you're not the last. And representation does matter. And that's why we're doing this specific series. So thank you so much for that. Be on time, be present, and make sure that you are open to being the only one, because you just never know who's going to see you shine your light in that field. So thank you so much, Dr. Armwood, for joining us today. And if you have to hop off, I totally understand. I do want to open the floor. Does anybody have any questions? Do we have any questions in the chat, Ms. Broadway or Ms. Query or Dr. Query?
I am seeing such great comments about the information that is being shared. I tell you, you couldn't pay for this information that they're giving out today, but I don't see any questions per se. I did have one question for Mr. Slaughter. How did he transition from, what made him transition from music to real estate? That was a question.
So the transition, let's see, I stopped doing music. I think my last album was like 2012 or something like that, 2012, 2013. And in between, and I stopped doing music just because my stuff I wasn't getting booked, you know, getting booked like I was before. I wasn't hot, right? And so, you know, one day you're hot, next day you're not. And so I was like, oh shoot, I gotta get a real job, because I was doing music since I was 19. And so during that transition, I went back to school. I got my undergrad in business, got my master's in education, and I started a nonprofit company that actually did music production, and it would go to schools and like at school programs and teach kids about music production and tie it into STEM. And I did that for a couple of years. And one school that I did it at liked me, and they said, hey, do you want to be a CTE teacher? And I was like, the heck is that? And they were like, well, kind of all the stuff that you're teaching the kids with music and building websites and all the techie stuff, you can show them how to do that. And so that kind of led me to the teacher thing. And I taught for 5 years. And I actually loved it, to be honest. Loved teaching. I did that for 5 years. And like I said, I had got 2 investment properties, and I just, while I was teaching, I really went to real estate school just to get access to the MLS so I can get some more properties. And I think while I was in school teaching, I got my license in July, went back to school in August, and then by December, I had already made my school salary with real estate in like 4 months. And so I was like, yeah, I like real estate. I like it a lot. But I still do go in and out of schools and do a lot of talks, because I love working with kids. So I'm still in schools and talking with students and all this other, you know, type stuff, and because it's something that's really on my heart. But that's how that transition happened.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else in the audience have any questions before we close out with one final question? All right, so I will start with Mr. Armwood and ask, if you could give your 17-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, let me give you my 50-year-old self. Always be able to learn. Mr. Slaughter, Mr. Armwood, Mr. Privet, I have been blessed. You all have poured into me at 51. All right,
We're
but
about to say one.
yeah, but before I go to 17, man, this has truly been a blessing to me, and I'm a panelist, man. But this has been awesome. This has really been awesome, man. But the 17, I would say to be still, to listen, to take education more important, and like Brandon, Dr. Brandon said, is to find mentors and listen to them. You know, some people have bumped their heads, so you don't have to. And at 17, you don't get that. So be still, listen, and just make sure you find mentors. I think I would have did a better job at that, even though I had them in my house, but just to listen to them more.
Fantastic. I think we could all take a second to really listen to that. I think we could all listen a little bit more these days. So thank you for that. I appreciate you sharing. Mr. Slaughter, do you have any advice for your 17-year-old Sean?
Yeah, I double down on what Keith said. I push all my chips in because I was so hard headed, man. Oh my Lord, I was so hard headed, and yeah, having a mentor, taking education more seriously. You know, I was a full scholarship football player, and I dropped out of school after 2 years, just being stupid, being dumb, right? And did my music career, and then eventually had to go back to school to finish my bachelor's and then get my master's. And I felt like so many times, especially as Black men, we start so late because we start learning so late. So, you know, dudes will graduate at 22 and get their master's at 24, and it's like there's a path, man. Like you don't have to start so late. But you know, we want to get our heads banged around for a little bit, and then it's like wake up at 35 and be like, nah, let me go back to school. And so I doubled down on what Keith said. The other thing I would put in is this is gonna sound a little counterintuitive, but I would say find a niche and jump all the way in. Right. So I love listening to Keith, because Keith was like, for 27 years, I did this, and then I'm doing this. And I know kids are saying to themselves, you know, is he like 106 years old? No. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have no idea how many chances to do things you have in your lifetime. You know, he's only 51. You can have 3 careers, you know, before you're 50. And so find a niche and jump all the way in. I think in my music career, as decent as it was, I wish I would have probably focused more on it, and because I like doing all the other businesses as well, right? And I like, you know, there's a book called The One Thing, and I like what, you know, Dr. Armwood has, like this niche of a niche of a niche, like of a niche. And I'm telling you, another book, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and he talks about this. He says, you know, if you're going to sell something, don't sell it to a man. Sell it to a man that wears green socks on Sunday, that cuts the lawn at 2 p.m. Like really, really, really focus in and hone in on a particular thing, and jump all the way in, and you'll become a specialist. And when you're young, you can do that. And if you don't like it, you can reset and try something again. But don't be so scattered brain and trying to do, like, you know, I know dudes got like 30 hustles, you know what I mean? And the reality is that you can do the 30 hustles. Once the one thing kind of, you know, blows up and is able to sustain you as a family, then you can branch out. You know what I'm saying? Then you can branch out. And that's what all the people that, you know, Apple, we're going to blow up with this iPod, and then we're going to branch out into the phones and the tablets and so on and so forth. I think sometimes we try to branch out too fast. Put all your energy, all your focus into that niche, into that one thing, you know, that you want to do, and become a specialist, become a master. You should be able to teach a master class on the thing that you do. And then as you grow, you never know what other opportunities can spur out of that. And then you can have your multiple hustles. But start the multiple hustles, you know, later, you know what I'm saying, than sooner. Educate yourself and focus yourself on that one niche so that you can be a master at what you do.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And I did put that book recommendation link for Amazon in the chat. And just in case anybody wants to, thank you for those recommendations. I really appreciate it. And if any other panelists have book recommendations, feel free to put those in the chat so that our attendees can grab those and use those for later. Also podcast recommendations. I don't know if you're anything like me, I'm not a huge reader, but I will listen to something in a quickness. So definitely feel free to put those in the chat. Last but not least, Mr. Privet, do you want to give your 17-year-old self a piece of advice? Got to unmute yourself, love bug.
Okay. Yeah. So I would tell my 17-year-old self to slow down and smell the roses. Don't stop and smell them. Just slow down and smell the roses. So a little bit about me, like Mr. Slaughter said, when I jump into something, I am full steam ahead. No stopping. Get out of my way. I will run you over. That's how I played football. That's how I ran track. That's how I did everything in my life, right? Full steam ahead. I'm jumping in head first. But then I never took the time to like stop and think about what I'm doing or think about how my actions affect others or those around me sometimes, or like what the long-term implications of what I'm doing are. That's one of the reasons I like really resisted education, because I know like, hey, once I'm in it, hey, it's full steam ahead. That's why I was like, I don't want to do it because I know I'm gonna like it, and just push versus like stopping, reflecting. Okay, like I can do this and still have time to do all these other ventures or whatever things that I have. And really being reflective on like myself. That's something I lacked for quite some time. But now I'm able to do that. Like I didn't realize till not too long ago, like, I'm where I'm supposed to be at, right? Like I played football. I would, growing up, you're like, oh, I want to play ball. I want to do this. I want to do that, and realize that it wasn't going to, like, I didn't have the drive to like really go to the next level with it. But then realize like, reflecting like, oh, I wasn't wasting my time. Right. I gained that school that like, I don't have any regrets about it. Right. Because it wasn't a waste. Now it's a tool. It's a tool I use to reach my population, right? Reach my kids, reach those kids on the football team. Like we had, like this past year was tough in education, like with all the virtual stuff, and like just having kids try out for football or try to play football, like that gives them that extra bump to try in the classroom. I had a running club. I had 96 kids at a running club, just running, and just they wanted something, and knowing like, hey, I ran track. I knew I wasn't, I was fast. I went to states, but I wasn't fast enough, to get a scholarship. Oh, there's no regrets. It's like, oh, here's this tool I have that I'm implementing later. Right. And like being able to reflect on that has been like a really powerful thing for me. Like, what other things am I capable of doing, or other skills that I've gotten that I can use to further myself in education, further my career, or even just like, how else do I serve? Like, because in education, it's all about service, right? Like you serving it's all about them and serving them. Like, what other tools do I have that I can use to serve them that I've gained, right? And just being able to stop and reflect. I definitely would have ended up in education a lot sooner, who knows the difference, but I don't, again, no regrets, right? Even my time in Social Security disability has taught me some things that I can use later, right? I'm pretty good with a computer and all that now. Like I wouldn't have had those skills before, right? But yeah, so just stop or slow down and smell the roses. Don't stop, don't ever stop. But yeah, slow down and reflect a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I have to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing what you all do, especially in the fields that you're in. I know it can be really hard to be one of the only ones or one of the few. So thank you for representing your culture, yourself, your families, and my family, and some of you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your expertise because my father always says that never look down on someone unless you're pulling them up. And I think today we have really taken the time out to really pull others up. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to let everybody go for the day, but thank you so much for joining us. This recording will be sent out to all who registered. We will post it on the CFNC YouTube channel in hopes that others will gain as much as we did from all of your pieces of knowledge. Keep up the great work, keep being yourselves. And if you have any questions or any lingering questions, feel free to ask. But at this point, we're going to stop the recording and let everyone go for the day. Thank you for sticking around with us. This was fantastic. We really appreciate y'all.
All right. Thank you, y'all. Thank you, gentlemen.